Hi, Michelle O'Neill with O'Neill Wasaki. We're back with the last segment of our webinar called Tales from the Crypto. And in this segment, we're actually going to move a little bit away from cryptocurrency and just talk generally about intangible assets and digital assets and how we deal with those in a Texas divorce. So I'm still joined by Andrew Spear, who is our intangible asset resident expert in the firm. And so we're going to talk first, kind of in this transition from cryptocurrency to some other stuff. We're going to talk first about the licensing on the mining rigs that you use to mine the cryptocurrency. So tell us about that.
It's a great intro into the segment because each mining rig or mining computer, right, has all of these graphics cards that are typically producing the revenue or verifying transaction and paying me out, right? But beneath that are a whole bunch of other parts. And there's going to be a hard drive or a USB stick somewhere. And on that USB stick or hard drive is going to be software. And that specific software is going to have a license token. And that one license token will have value. Some of them you pay up front, you get to keep it forever. There's one called ETH OS that you do that. And you can't use the program if you don't have that. You need to have the license, right? And that's something that is worth value and can be divided. If I have multiple rigs, you get 3 licenses, I get 4 or something like that. And it's intangible, right? It's software. And I can email it. It's something that exists in that regard. And it's a unique ID. It holds value. And without it, other things don't work. And so people
you don't make the money off the mining if you don't have the license.
Yeah.
So that's something that could be an asset or could be of value as part of the mining rig.
Absolutely. And then a lot of licenses, the other type, you pay monthly. And that will have the configuration for the entire mining rig on it. So you want that account, right? That account is going to save you hours of time trying to actually get the mining rig to work. And so accounts are worth a lot of money, even if you have to pay for them monthly, because you won't make money unless you own that account.
So then there's other types of intangible assets. And before we started, you and I tried to brainstorm a list of them.
Yes.
So we'll just kind of start heading down the list and kind of bullet shot these during this segment. Reddit. Tell me, what is Reddit for those people like me that are a little older and don't necessarily know?
Think of it, it's almost like the old chat rooms, but it's a forum. It's they call it the front page of the internet is their little logo or slogan. And anyone can log in and post about any topic and comment on it in most scenarios. However, sometimes, so let's say there's going to be a mining Reddit, right, page. There's even like a lawyer Reddit page, a legal advice one. There's a medical advice one. There's all these different ones. There's going to be one for the TV shows, right?
Okay.
There's going to be a Lost
Like
Reddit.
almost any topic you could think of.
Anything.
There's going to be a Reddit
But on
thread.
Yes,
Is that what you call
sure.
it? Thread. Okay.
A page, whatever you want
Page.
to call it.
All
Yeah.
right.
But on some of them, you have to have a certain amount of Reddit karma to even post, right?
Oh.
So to even ask a question, I have to have commented on other things before. And they have to have been good comments that people voted up on, not bad ones they didn't like and all voted down. It's like there's a Black Mirror episode on this, on your social worth. On Reddit, in very certain communities, this matters. And so who gets the Reddit account could matter for maybe influencers too. Depending on a business's Reddit account would be useful. That's an introductory idea of the intangible asset having value, is those karma points, because it lets me post.
Okay. So whenever I think of intangible assets from a divorce standpoint, one of the most obvious ones to me is the iTunes library.
Oh yes, that's the perfect example. It's literally software. Who has you?
Licensing
Yeah, the
again,
licensing
right?
up
It's
to the
licensing
music.
to listen to the
Yeah.
music.
Hmm.
And we've paid money for that.
Yes.
And some of us have very large music libraries.
Yes.
So those are going to have been, I mean, I don't, are they worth anything? I mean, I guess a replacement value, it would be worth something.
Yes, it would be probably $1 per song or whatever you paid, or whatever it costs now. Yeah, the replacement value. But the trick with iTunes sometimes is, not in all cases, but in a lot, you have to log in, right? You have to be logged into the Apple ID iCloud account to be able to play the songs. And so that's another intangible asset that gets you access to a third or a second intangible asset.
So the Apple account is an asset.
Yes.
Or possibly.
And also the song is too, because not all of them require that.
Sure. But so the Apple account that you have to be able to log into your
To
iTunes
play
library.
the video, yeah. Or,
You know, there could be some people that have a combined or one Apple account
Thousands of
for
dollars.
the whole family or for a
Yeah.
couple who is divorcing. And that Apple account with the iTunes library and other things in it would be worth substantial amount of money to replace.
yes. If you remember, you can now do buy or rent on iTunes or Amazon, whatever you want, right? Buy or rent a movie. Before, rent didn't always exist. You just had to buy it.
Right.
And so a lot of people just own a
Own
whole bunch of movies,
movies.
that now they wouldn't, but they do.
Right.
In music, they own a lot of music. This was pre-Spotify. Remember, Spotify wasn't always around. And so they'll, like, thousands of songs, even tens of thousands of songs.
Well, and you alerted me to this, and then I read about it that actually Apple has announced that they're phasing out iTunes.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do with that.
Well, what I read was that you're going to be able to keep your library
Okay.
and of anything that you've purchased
They're just not going to sell anymore.
or that you downloaded from a CD that you own.
Yes.
So you're going to be able to keep that. But right, the purchasing in the future is going to change to more of a subscription service.
Yeah. And speaking of the CDs you've uploaded, that would be an example of something that you don't need the license for, I think.
Okay.
It's been a while,
Yeah.
but I know there are some where you need it and some where you don't.
Right.
And so that's a great example of that.
And so
but someone still
similar-
owns it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So similar to the Apple account is your Amazon account then.
Yes.
Because your Amazon account is going to hold your Kindle books.
Yep.
So your ebook library, your Audible books, your movies, your Amazon movies, if you bought them, not rented them.
That's actually a great point. So one year I bought my mom a Kindle for Christmas, and I linked it to my Amazon account. So guess who owns all those books?
Yeah.
I do.
Right. Right. So then there's your photo library.
Yep.
I'm not sure whether that has an actual physical value, but it certainly has an emotional value.
This is something people fight about constantly. What I've tried to do with the photos, if it was the parties taking them, right? If you have no rights issues or usage
Yeah.
issues, I send one of them to a Staples or a Kinko's or something with the USB, order them to leave it there and tell them to make copies,
Right.
and then have the other party come and pick up the copies and
Yeah.
pay for it, and not pick up the
Well,
USB.
Would the photo library, if you have your handy dandy, iPhone, those are going to be in your
The
Apple
iCloud.
account,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's again another place where the Apple account could have value, maybe not resale value, certainly replacement value, and then possibly some emotional value.
Well, and what if you uploaded a video to YouTube, right? The YouTube account. That's going to have value. 'cause
Sure, sure.
It'll produce revenue and just ownership. I can switch it to private anytime I want. You can never see that video again,
Yeah.
right? The family trip to Florida or something is off limits for mom now, right? Because dad switched it to the off button.
Right, right. Okay, so then moving from those kind of, at least to me, the obvious intangible assets to some of us, many of us are very familiar with, but some people are not. I still am amazed when I find people that don't know what PayPal is and don't have a PayPal account. But PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, I'm sure there's others, but those are the main three that I know of. where you can transact or send money digitally
Yes.
without necessarily, I mean, I guess you have to have a bank account to have those accounts, but it doesn't turn into cash in your pocket because you can park money within those programs.
Yes, there are escrow accounts. So when I buy my buddy a hamburger or whatever at lunch and he pays me back through Venmo, that stays in Venmo. It doesn't go directly into my bank account. It leaves his bank account. That you can see. But unless you have access to my Venmo, you don't know how much money I have parked there.
Right.
Until I push transfer now, that money exists in the cloud, essentially.
Now,
right?
the good news about PayPal and Venmo, unlike the cryptocurrency
Yes.
topic, is that there is a bank statement. I mean, there
Yes.
is an account statement that can be printed that can show what's in there in the transaction history.
Yes, and it's going to be much easier to read than, for instance, an exchange cryptocurrency statement.
With
is
the
gonna-
little data numbers and letters.
It's going to be all
Yeah.
over the place. This is much easier to read.
Yeah. It's in traditional language.
There might be emojis, right?
Right. So, what I've seen is somebody may be preparing for divorce, and this may not be a huge dollar value, although it could be with the right planning. You could go on to Poshmark or Etsy or eBay and start selling things
Link it to your PayPal.
and link it to your PayPal or Venmo and park the money there so that if nobody really caught wind, then you've got money stashed away. Or you could maybe create things like you could, knit some pot holders and sell them and have people pay you through PayPal.
And unless you ask the right question, no one knows it exists.
Sure.
What's even more interesting, though, is some companies are paying people just through Venmo.
Like paying
Wedding
for
planners. I know wedding planners do this. Sometimes you pay
for
your
service
hairstylist.
industry.
Yeah, service industry.
Yeah.
And so they will pay their employees sometimes. They'll be very small companies, but they'll pay their wage through Venmo. And if, let's say I'm a photographer, right, and I do a $3,000 shoot for a wedding, and I get paid in Venmo, and you're trying to determine my my net monthly income for purposes of child support, and I never push transfer now, I just let it keep stacking up. If that's my weekend job, my income, unless you get to my, depending on if I report on my tax return, right, is be much lower, and that's a problem.
Yeah, yeah. I could see that for side hustle stuff like that, like the service, like a wedding planner or service industry type thing. If you were going to be a little sophisticated about it, this isn't even like sophisticated cryptocurrency sophistication. This is just
it.
minimal sophistication. You could park money in one of these money apps.
And there's an even more interesting way is if you, what if you just sent it to one of your friends and had them cash it out and pay you?
Sure.
Or what if you open a new bank account later on?
Secret
Yeah.
bank account. And that
After the
nobody knows
divorce or
about.
something, transfer it then.
Yeah. So, I even know a mediator who has a payment method through PayPal. I mean, I guess our law firm probably could technically receive payment for services through PayPal because our law firm has a PayPal account.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we don't. But I've never been asked to do that, but I guess we could.
Yeah.
So that's a really interesting, place where digital assets could exist. Moving on to games. Let's talk about games. This is something that I know very little about, other than that I just generally know there's a question. So I'm thinking that I know people who play all these little games on Facebook, and you have to put money into the games, and you win prizes and things depending on your levels. So as I understand it, you can park some money, maybe not big money, but some little money in your Facebook account for your games.
If I remember correctly, I feel like maybe it's Angry Birds or something. You put in some money to unlock stuff, but you definitely can deposit funds there. And to be honest with you, I don't know what the limit is on that. I don't know how much you'd really want to park there because I don't know how you get it out.
Right.
But you could put money in there and it will have value.
Well, and you can transfer money through Facebook now. You can pay
Oh.
somebody through Facebook.
Yes, and then Facebook is coming out with its own cryptocurrency too, in unison
Oh, I
with
did read that.
with Uber, right?
Yes.
And governments are not liking this idea because if I can pay for most goods with this Facebook, I think it's called a Libra. Why do I need a dollar?
Right.
Uh,
Right. We're going to have an international currency
Mm-hmm.
then. And then there's like Warcraft or some of those type of games that aren't Facebook games. They're different platforms, but you can also store money kind of in those games.
Now these ones I'm not as familiar with, but I've looked into. I know what it was like maybe a decade ago. But what you can do, there's two ways to approach this. You can buy what's called downloadable content, right? It's like an expansion pack or a new add-on to a game, right? So that has value. But what's more impressive is there are people who will build up a character, right? They make it like 100 level character. I think 100 is good. I know they do this, and what they do is they sell that character to someone else who doesn't want to do all the work but wants to have all the fun in the game, because the higher the level of your character, the more things it can do. And I know this is a rather popular thing to do. And then there's also items in games, right? So I know
Like
this
your
occurs.
weapons or
Yeah,
something?
the weapons.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of a
Aren't
good
you
example.
impressed I knew that?
I feel like yeah. Well, I have not done this in ages. I never did this when I could, but I knew that people were selling the weapons, right? And so if you play a video game long enough, you've actually created something that is worth money. And I guess, when I was younger, I remember being told I'd be playing my Nintendo. No, that's worthless. Don't do this. This has no value. Well, now,
Now it has some value.
a few $100. Yeah.
Yeah. eBay.
Yes.
eBay's a place where you can sell some stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
could sell my husband's shoes and his tie collection and maybe some watches.
Yeah.
But they pay through PayPal.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be feeding into PayPal, not
Yes.
necessarily independent value.
Yes, but then you still have that same escrow issue too.
Sure. Sure.
But yeah, they definitely connect and they are interlinked. I bought items on eBay all the time. I just click use my PayPal.
Yeah.
And
I
it's all
do a
connected
lot
there.
of my internet shopping and click use my PayPal.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So then let's talk about domain names.
Oh, that's a fun one.
That's a place
Mm-hmm.
I know for me personally, I sometimes will get an idea in my head and I might want to do something with that someday. And so I'll go buy a domain name.
Mm-hmm.
And I have at times had, several domain names in my GoDaddy account.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a place. I mean, domain names, if you get the right ones, they can be valuable.
You can sell them, and linking back to where we started, on Reddit, there will be pages where people are offering to sell their domain names, and they go for a pretty penny if you get a good one, and
Sure.
if you time it right before a big event launches or something like
Yeah.
that. And what a lot of people don't know now is you can get the .law domain name, and those are expensive.
Right. Well, yeah, they see lawyers coming.
Yeah, they see it, and those are
Well, they have a whole
upcharged.
bunch of those dots now, like .tv,
Yeah,
.law. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them.
there's a lot.
Yeah.
And
So it's not just .com anymore.
in owning that, let's say if you're a business, right, the right to that domain name is going to be effectively controlling your revenue stream if you have an online business. If I don't own that domain name, how do I sell things to people,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, I mean, if you own a business, I mean, certainly owning your domain name is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I would almost recommend, and this is a little off topic, but I'd almost recommend to everybody out there to go buy the domain name with your name.
Yeah, well, I should
You
do
know, yeah, you should.
that. You know what's going to happen, right? Someone's going to do that right now.
Nah, you're going to have it done before they see this. Influencer accounts. I really want to talk about influencer accounts because this is an area that I've actually recently been reading up on and learning about. So your Instagram handle, your Facebook, maybe your Facebook business page, your YouTube page, all of those, what do you call them, properties that kind of lump together. And I guess the lumping together is called a property, but all of those things that lump together to create like an influencer. And influencers make money.
Yes.
I think we have a case in the office right now where there's an influencer issue where somebody's making money off of that. And so when you gather enough followers to your, say, Instagram page,
Get a sponsor,
then
right?
advertisers or sponsors want to pay you money or give you presents, you know, and in exchange for you posting on Instagram. So, for example, DSW
Yeah.
wants to have influencers post about their shoes and tag DSW in it so that other people will buy shoes from DSW, and they'll either give you free stuff or they'll pay you a percentage of sales off of a link,
Okay.
or they'll just, some of them just pay like $300 for you to post a picture. So there's some money
And it scales.
potentially
Yeah.
in
Like,
those influencer accounts.
the Kardashians are making like $60,000 a picture or even more.
Right.
Um,
But
That's-
even, I
that's-
mean, they call them, I guess, micro influencers.
Oh,
And
yeah.
these micro influencers are making, you know, 10,000 a month.
Yeah.
I mean, a month.
yeah.
And that's something I think from a divorce standpoint that would be easy to overlook. Now, usually the other spouse is going to cry wolf on it because they're going to know
Yeah.
if they're making money off of an influencer account. And that's kind of what happened in the case that we have. The spouse knew they were making money. And so at the temporary hearing, when somebody's saying, oh, I need spousal support because I don't work, then you call bull on that and say, yeah, well, you may not work, but you are an influencer and you're making money off of that. So that's a place that there could be some hidden value, and
Yeah.
it's probably not incorporated. It's probably a sole proprietorship type deal. And then you raised a good question off camera. The question would be then, is there personal goodwill
Oh, yeah.
associated with that influencer status? And how does that affect, quote unquote, the value of
The account, right?
of the account
Yeah.
or of the lump of accounts together? So I think that's a place that's kind of ripe for some thought process.
There are going to be problems there in the future. If
Yeah.
there haven't already been.
Sure, I'm sure
I-
there have been,
yeah.
but
That's
that's a very interesting place. Kind of related to that are blogs. I mean, what happened before there was influencers is that there were blogs. And the blogs were the precursor that kind of started creating the influencers. And so a lot of people still have blogs and they still make, they still kind of get maybe ad revenue or keyword revenue by using keywords, or they get paid for
Well, pay per click.
pay per click or the ads around the blog, or they get paid for posting, kind of like an influencer deal. They get paid for posting about a product.
Yeah.
So that's a place where there can be some value both in the domain name, in the gravitas that the blog has over time through like Google searches or whatever, and then also in the ad revenue or whatever the revenue is that it spends off.
It's if people ignore this, it's going to be to their detriment. I can imagine there being a case where, sure, a business is divided, but you got to focus on that website too.
Yeah, on the domain, sure. One
the
of them
blog.
that I thought was interesting when we were brainstorming was loyalty reward accounts. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
as lawyers, I think it's pretty common that we recognize that there's maybe airline mile accounts or hotel reward accounts, but there's some other, I mean, reward accounts are everywhere.
I want my wife's Starbucks rewards account.
Uh-oh,
That's
watch
community.
out. Yeah, I mean, my husband has our Starbucks rewards account, and so it's in his name, and so like Starbucks is one of those that collects rewards points. I had a case one time that involved an Aveda account. So Aveda is a beauty product line. And they have a reward account. So every time you go into the Aveda store in the mall and you buy your beauty products, they give you rewards points. And you can collect these rewards points over time. And ultimately, I think the biggest thing you can save them and collect for is like a trip to the Caribbean. I mean, that's a
Wow.
lot of points. That's a pretty big reward, is a trip to the
Yeah.
Caribbean. So one time I had case where the husband was like, hey, wait a minute, I want some of those rewards points. Well, with Aveda, you couldn't transfer them to the other spouse. It was just the one name. So he basically wanted the trip and took the trip off of the rewards, and then she got the account. So that's another place where there's some value, hidden value in something that isn't a tangible asset. And rewards accounts are everywhere.
Everything.
I learned the other day, we went to the movies, and there's a Fandango rewards now.
Have you seen the
And there's
movie
Cinemark rewards, and
where you
there's
get the
AMC.
monthly movies and stuff like that too? Yeah.
It's just crazy, all the rewards that are out there now, this kind of cash back idea.
The movie one is interesting too, especially because there used to be Movie Pass, right? So that'd be the ownership of an account. That went underwater, I think, or it's suspended for a really long time.
Yeah.
But now all of the movie theaters offer you that pass, right?
Yeah.
And so that's another intangible asset
Right.
there. It's really a license, but
You
another
know,
one.
and I just thought of another one. My Wells Fargo credit card, and I'm sure there's other credit cards that give you rewards points. So I have
Yeah.
a separate account associated with my Wells Fargo credit card that gives me points
Okay.
every time I spend money. And so I can then take those points and spend them on gift cards, which what I do with that is I spend them on Amazon gift cards because I pretty much buy everything off of Amazon now. So, so you can take those points and buy gift cards and turn those into value.
Yeah.
But if I were getting a divorce, which I'm not, but if I were getting a divorce and you didn't know that there was that rewards account
Points
associated with my credit card, then you wouldn't know that I have, a few $1,000s worth of rewards points built up that I could cash
Park
in.
there. Just looks like a point.
Or just
right?
let it sit there for a long time, and it just kind of creates that value.
Absolutely.
I think HSAs are another one. I mean, those are not quite as intangible, but HSAs are another place that you have to remember to think about it, that there's money parked.
Yes, and you can invest in HSA's funds,
Yeah.
and it'll yield dividends. It's just like a brokerage. It's,
Sure,
yeah.
sure. I mean, I was told a long time ago by a CPA to just let your HSA collect because when you get old and you need the money, then you can
There it
use
is.
it then and you can just save it as kind of a savings account, a medical type of account
Yeah.
Until you get over 65 and then use it.
Yeah.
So I've
It's a
rolled
rainy
over
day
every
fund, yeah.
HSA I've had into one, and so I have a large number in my HSA account, but that would be easy to forget when
Yes.
you're filling out an inventory in a divorce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
So,
Yeah.
well, this has been interesting. Thank you, Andrew, for joining me on this webinar. And I appreciate all of you guys out there for joining us. I hope that you've learned a few things like I have from this webinar. So this concludes part 4 of our webinar. We have gotten 2.0 hours of credit from the State Bar of Texas for this webinar. And we appreciate you joining us, and join us next month for the webinar on child support. Thanks. Keep in mind that this is a webinar that's aimed at attorneys. This is for continuing legal education. If you're out there watching this webinar and you're not an attorney, we welcome you to watch it. But remember that we are not giving you any specific legal advice. We cannot comment on any specific case or situation without knowing all the facts. So if you need legal advice, this webinar is not a substitute for legal advice. Please, please seek the advice of a lawyer as to your specific situation and get specific advice to that. Because if you rely on just what we're talking about here, we're being general, we're talking about general legal principles that may not actually apply to your situation. This is for continuing legal education only, and we cannot create an attorney-client relationship just through the video camera. Okay? Thanks.